Hi, I'm G, welcome to my art channel, and in this video you'll see me painting a poinsettia in watercolor. And the first thing you can see me doing here is laying down the basic shapes of the flower with no pencil lines and just using a big size 8 brush to just block in the basic shapes with a really loose watery wash of sanguine red. And next you can see me putting in some of the green leaves in the background using Winsor Green Blue shade, really watery again, and sort of trying to be really expressive, so letting some of those colors really run together. So this is what it looks like when it's dried, and you can see that because you use so much water and lots of fluid that as it's dried I got some back runs, especially on the tips of the petals. So I'm hoping that that's going to be okay as I continue painting. And I start with the background, and I use a combination of sanguine red and Winsor Green Blue shade together to try and get some slightly darker greens in the background. Not too many shapes, I want some of them to fade out. As you can see, I just sort of add water to some of the greens and then kind of just fade them, brush them out towards the edge of the paper or up towards the top, because I just want this kind of like very fuzzy idea in the background. On the actual petals themselves, I do want a lot more crispness and clarity. So you can see I'm using a size 6 brush now to apply some more sanguine red, much richer, less dilute sanguine red on the petals to try and get some areas that are now shadowy, dark and light. So I go in a little bit closer here and you can see how I'm tackling some of these main petals and trying to work from top to bottom. So you can see me go straight up the middle of that petal first of all, then do some of the creases off towards the right, then towards the left, and I'll put on sort of raw color from a palette that I've got next to me where I've mixed it up a little bit first of all, and if I need it to be paler and lighter once it's on the paper, then I will add clean water straight on with the brush and just sort of mix it into the color and move it around with the brush, sort of manipulate it with the brush in order to try and get it as light as I need it to be. I've got the palette next to me, so if I go too light I can always dab the brush in the paint and pop on a bit more paint. So it's that constant kind of balancing out between adding a lot of water to make it lighter but adding in some more paint to make areas darker. Now I've gotten to the point where I've blocked in some of the main shadows, and I think I'm getting quite a nice effect of sort of 3D stuff coming towards me, stuff going further away from me. It's time to start adding some slightly darker shadows, and now I introduce a new color. I introduce alizarin crimson, hope I said that okay, into my reds so that I'm getting a darker red for the sort of third layer of shadows that I'm putting down on some of these areas, because some of these leaves are very, very red in the background. The other thing that I do is when I'm mixing the greens for the background that have to be in a nice rich dark green, I'm also using alizarin crimson there. So I'm using alizarin crimson, sanguine red and Winsor Green Blue shade together on those background leaves. Here you can see me adding that sort of new darker red mix to some areas of the petals now to try and get that sort of third layer of really dark kind of like red areas that are going to be in the most shadow. I know you might be watching this and thinking, whoa, that's not the way he usually paints. He usually pencils stuff out and he's usually very, very crisp, careful and very kind of realistic, almost a bit too realistic at times. And I am always trying, I'm always striving to do something that is more expressive and more painterly. And it's really hard to do because you just get in this kind of, habit, this routine, and it's a good routine, but it's really difficult to break out of it. So I was deliberately challenging myself here by not drawing it out, first of all, if you will, drawing it with the paint, but also using big brushes. I never go lower than a size 6 brush so that I can hopefully keep it big, loose, and not too detailed, because the kind of bane of my life is that I get so bogged down. I love the details that, I can end up overwhelming a picture, I think, sometimes, and not seeing the kind of the colors, the contrast, and the shapes, and the forms, and all those other things. So I'm just trying to be a bit more expressive with this one, and I'm choosing a few little kind of techniques and challenging myself in a couple of ways in order to try and weigh the balance in favor of it being more expressive and perhaps less, super realistic painterly. I still love the super realistic painterly stuff, but I want to try to be able to kind of do the two styles side by side. So as I go close up on this pale leaf, you can see areas where there's still white paper showing through. And that was deliberate. As I was painting the thing, I was trying to use a technique called trapping the light, where you leave some areas white or light that you want to be, special highlights and draw attention to. In truth, I probably left way too many. But, it's early doors. But that's one of the things that I'm trying to do in order to just add a little bit more visual flair to some of these pictures. And on this one, I thought I'd added too much in the top section, so you can see me just tissue sponging some of that color off to make that side of that petal a bit lighter. Now you can see me using 300 GSM paper here, so it's quite thick paper, which allows me to do multiple layers of color that you can see me doing, I think the third or fourth layer of shadows on this particular petal right now without too much problem. It also allows me to do what you see me do next, which is blot a bit of the background which I had earlier. It's by adding water and then sponging off that color in order to try and make that area lighter, because I really didn't like the way the background had a bit of a pattern there. So I decided I'd sort of erase it and take it out. Next, you can see me changing the shape of that middle leaf here by cutting into it with some of the red shadows that I paint on. It just had a slightly unrealistic shape to me, so I thought I'd just do a bit of corrections there, which means not just correction, cutting into the shape with some red paint, but also I'm going to have to paint some extra green on the background underneath it, the shadow, to try and hide some of that shape as well. So a little correction I didn't really want to have to make, but considering I jumped straight in with no pencil lines, and that's the only thing I'd really had to correct, I was kind of like going, phew. Now, I'm not embarking on this mission to be more expressive just by myself. I do read books and manuals and guides and so on. And the one that I'm reading at the moment is a book by a lady called Jean Haines. And you can look her up on various social media like Twitter and Instagram. And she does watercolor pictures that are super expressive, where it looks like she really slaps it on. And then she tilts the paper and makes the paper run and adds all sorts of colors and makes it work. And, I'm looking at her book at the moment where she talks through some basic techniques and some ideas as to how you can improve and also make your paintings more expressive and more watery, really celebrate that watery quality of watercolor. So, I would advise anybody trying to do a little bit more expressive work to maybe check her stuff out. Then all I had to do was sign it and have a step back and have a look at it. And I was really pleased with how it had gone, but I had to remove that masking tape. So I really enjoyed this step on my journey towards being more creative and painterly. It was a bit hair-raising at times, but I had a blast doing it. So let me know in the comments below what you think of the whole process I used. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And don't forget, while you're here, you can follow me on various social media. I'm on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, and Twitter under the handle of gmassumart. And also have a look at some of my other videos on this screen and also the links below. Thanks for watching.